Oh, I don't play traps because I don't want to go third. Today, we need to talk about why our beloved trap card is dying. The Common Garden trap card is dying a death in Yu-Gi-Oh!, with the power creep of Yu-Gi-Oh! Finally beginning to turn the corner and kill its first fundamental card mechanic. I've played this game in a fair few formats, and of course my opinion will be very biased based on my major absence from the 2006 to 2010 formats, but I thought you would enjoy a bit of my insight into traps through the ages. Throughout this video, I'll be discussing my concept of value, which is basically an algebraic representation of what an individual card contributes to the game state, be it the removal of a threat card or by taking down more cards than itself and kind of causing a change in card advantage. To understand the issues with a trap card, you have to understand the key factors of its design. A trap card is required to be set by the turn player to the field and cannot be activated or used until the next turn. This means that any value generated by a trap card is delivered later and cannot contribute to a turn where it begins in the hand. To return on this investment, the value produced by a trap card will often have to exceed the value that a singular spell or monster could deliver or contribute that earlier on in the game. Flashback to 2005 and the surrounding years of that metagame. When you built a deck, you always considered the content of monsters, spells, and traps, and in almost all cases, you would consider spells and traps to be fairly equidistant in their importance of list building. Goat control games abused cards like Call of the Haunted or force attrition swings with Mirror Force and Torrential Tribute. And in the slower formats of a pre-synchro era, the inherent disadvantage of traps, the delay, is mitigated by how slow moving the game is. And the lack of accelerated plays would actually force cards like Dust Tornado and Breaker the Magical Warrior to clear the way for swing states in the fear of those face-down game breakers. Yatterlock, possibly the most well-known first meta deck, took similar steps, even going so far as to play Imperial Order in a metagame filled with some of the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards that we've ever seen. Let's also not forget 2002's LOB format, featuring a whole 9 traps in the game's real metagame inception, maxing out Trap Hole, Waboku, and Reinforcement, 3 cards which would render huge swing states in that format. We then flash forward almost a decade to 2011 and 2012 when I returned to the game and I was really greeted with a whole different type of trap card. At this time, which was my next entry, Plant format and the Order of Chaos trilogy, the landscape was very different, but they shared some fundamental similarities in the way traps were played. If we take a look at Billy Break's Plant deck from 2011 and put it side by side with Ryan Hayakawa's Goat Control list from 2005, the formula remains fairly similar. Strong, value-driven monsters, era-specific staple power spells, and a concentrated trap segment of the most powerful traps of the era. In 2011 and 12, the Solemn Brigade were kings of the age, with the continued emergence of advantage-based combos and responsive quick play effects like Enemy Controller, as well as trigger effects from cards like Caius, the Shadow Monarch, Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, and Black Rose Dragon. To counteract cards that would normally deliver an enormous payload on summon, you needed cards that could generate absolute closure, and you couldn't do that with a spell. You had to do that with a counter trap. With an enormous negation coverage, you always generated a small number of cards that counteract win condition level cards with almost no exceptions. That was the level a trap had to go to qualify for your list. In this era, much like the GOAT format era, traps demanded respect, but we were fast approaching the apex of where traps would sit, and the eventual downswing for the card type. Move through into the latter parts of 2012 and 2013, Macro Rabbit continued on the tenets of Stun and Plant before it. Value-driven monster lineups, but with such a compartmentalized engine so that it could support traps to a much larger extent. The Solemn Brigade, backed up by mass removal such as Torrential Tribute, Bottomless Trap Hole, and Mirror Force, would form a backbone to sit behind protections such as Evolzar Lagia and Starlight Road. And let's not forget, decks like Wind Up and Insectors were able to replicate a fairly similar effect with smaller engines in the decks. At this point, a decade into Yu-Gi-Oh!, Konami had released hundreds of trap cards into the game, but a select few, often very old, hyper-generic and simplified cards continued to make the cut. As we look forward over to the era of Master Rule 3 and Pendulum over the years that would follow, and the advantage that is represented, often copying the advantage of Dragon Rulers and Mermail from 2013-2014 fame, in almost all cases, if a card did not have Solemn in its card name, it largely didn't see play over these years, because of the absolute power that's demanded out of a trap card due to the general power of spells and traps in the era. We then take a look forward to 2017 with the launch of Paleozoic and the true uprising of the new dual-purpose trap card. While cards like Breakthrough Skill and Lost Wind had brought double-use traps to the forefront of the game, these effects were very scarce prior to cards like the Paleozoic archetype. With the drop of Paleozoic, which was originally a Korean exclusive archetype in 2017, the concept of a trap card's value took a major sidestep into the incarnation we largely see today. The archetype represented a high coverage of effects that replicated popular old cards such as Book of Moon and Karma Cut, but with added bonuses in that each trap that was used turned itself into a monster, which in turn led to more negations, laddering value throughout the entire card system. In modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, we now see this value system again represented by the Eldritch archetype, with Eldritch's Golden Land trap cards now representing a triple threat layer of value. A trap monster on the field, recursion from the graveyard and self-replicating itself, and also additional effects in the form of grave banishment and non-target removal from the Conquistador and Hakero. Taking a look across the metagame, traps are now being forced to evolve in the same way as monsters by generating a second use of value utility from the graveyard, but to a much larger extent due to their inherent slowness. Drawing all of this together into a conclusion, while the majority of rules writing seems to generate monsters and spells throughout the ages that are capable of multi-card value really without a second thought, this attention seems to be sparingly paid to trap cards. The paradox we've often seen with trap cards through the years is that often their effect is replicated in a monster or spell, things that are immediately accessible, which renders the trap card redundant due to its inherent disadvantages. What this is meaning is, over time, for a trap card to find itself successful, it has to represent a card effect far more powerful than that of a spell or a monster, leading to cards like Evenly Matched, a power unprecedented in the game that has not been replicated by any monster or any spell since. And with this card, I'll kind of end us on a bit of a crossroads. Trap cards, outside of archetypes, have two choices to go with in the future. Either adapt and become some of the most powerful card effects Yu-Gi-Oh will ever see, a mountaintop never to be attained by monsters or spells, or be consigned to the annals of history as the first Yu-Gi-Oh card archetype to disappear from the game entirely. So guys, this has been another little op-ed piece that I wanted to throw together for you guys. As you could tell, this was all put together on a script. It makes it a lot easier to collate my thoughts over something that's in excess of 10 minutes. Let me know what you thought of it. Again, this takes a little bit more prep time to put together, but I really enjoy doing this sort of content. Hope you enjoyed. Leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below if you did enjoy it. Leave it a like to let me know that you want to see more of this sort of thing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I hope you have all enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time with some more Yu-Gi-Oh related content. This has been Jamie the Kid 00. Peace out. Bye bye.